Today I'm going to be taking you by the hand, and together we're going to look at my 5 favourite pearl jewellery tutorials of all time. I love working with pearls so much because they never go out of fashion and they possess an ageless versatility. With pearls you can create a piece that is elegant and sophisticated one day, then the next day you can create a piece that is edgy and releases your inner rock chick. Oh yeah! So grab a cup of your favourite beverage, get comfy and settle in. Let's see why these are my favourite pearl tutorials of all time. I have this beautiful cabochon pendant and it has a connector on all 4 sides, and it actually has 3 loops on either side as well, so lots of places to connect to. And what I'm going to do is put this pearl on top of it, and I'm going to use my E6000 to do that. All I'm going to do is take some E6000 and I'm going to apply it to the pendant, and then I'm going to pop on my pearl and I'm going to leave it until it is set. I actually did one yesterday so that it was already set for you, and here it is. I think it's absolutely gorgeous, and that's going to be the centerpiece of my first necklace. This is going to be a 3-strand necklace, and I'm going to use some tiger tail to string my pearls. Now I've actually got a 0.38mm one here. Okay, so I'm just going to take some, and I probably need about 30 to 40 centimetres. I always err on the side of cutting too much rather than too little because you want some extra to work with. Now the first thing I'm going to do is attach it to my pearl here. So I'm going to take my crimp tube and I'm going to feed it onto my tiger tail. Now this is a magical crimp tube, and I'm going to use my magical crimping pliers to crimp it. And then I'm going to feed it through the loop of my cabochon, the centre one there, and then back down through the crimp tube. Like that. And now I'm going to give my crimp tube a squeeze with my crimping pliers. If you haven't seen the magical crimping pliers before, I'll leave you a link to a video all about how to use them. Now my magical crimping pliers should give me a nice round crimp like a bead, but if it doesn't look that pretty, I'm not opposed to covering it up with a crimp cover. And I'm just going round and round trying to make it nice and round. And then I'm going to test it to make sure it's nicely stuck there. Some people tell me that they have issues with the magical crimping plier, and I think it depends on the length of the crimp tube that you use, and that's why using the magical crimping crimps with the crimping plier works best. I have used it with other crimp tubes as well. There is my first one, and I'm going to do that 2 more times on either side. There is my pendant with the 3 pieces of tiger tail attached. Now I'm going to string on some beads, but before I do that I'm actually going to trim these tails a little bit because they're quite long. I'm going to start off with some of my 6mm pearls. I've got some 6s, some 8s, and I've got 2 12s here. I'm going to string on 2 of my 6mm pearls. Now what I do find with these pearls, because they're glass and they are coated, sometimes the holes need a little bit of a poke through with a head pin or something, just to get the hole opened. These are actually the colour peach, but you could use white for this as well. And I'm just making sure that I feed that tail inside the pearls. And I'm going to do that on all of my 3 strands. And that is what I have so far. Next, I'm going to use one of these rhinestone connectors, and I'm going to feed that on, making sure I get it on the right way. So I need to take my top one and put it on the top side, or through the top hole. And then my next one, same thing, through the center hole. And then the third one through the other hole. That's what I have now. Next, I'm going to string 5 more on each of the 3 strands of the 6mm. So that's what I have now. Next, I'm going to add to the center one 3 of my 8mm pearls. These pearls are flying around all over the place. So that's what that looks like. And now I'm going to add 1 of my 12mm pearls to the outside strands. And there we go. Next, I'm going to add 2 of the 8mm to the outside strands. And that is what I have now. Next, I'm going to add some of the 6mm pearls to bring it back to the same length. So I'm going to add 2 to each of my outer strands and 3 to my center one. And that's what I have now. Next, I'm going to put on another spacer bar. So once again, I need to make sure I get it the right way up and I don't cross the strands. So there we go, that's what we have now. Isn't this looking gorgeous? I absolutely love the variations in the pearls. And these glass pearls, even though they are machine made, some of them are a little bit odd in shape. If you look at this one here, it's not quite so round as the other. So it's kind of cool. It gives it that more authentic look, even though we all know they're glass pearls. I'm going to add 2 6mm pearls to each strand. There it is now. Next, I'm going to add 11 of my 8mm pearls to each strand. Okay, there's my necklace so far. I think it's so pretty. And now I'm going to repeat all of that for the other side. There is my necklace all strung up and I think it's looking pretty cool. I think it will sit better once it's on rather than lying flat like it is at the moment. So next I need to decide if it's big enough, and I'm going to just hold it up to my neck. And it's quite a good length actually. I'm wondering if it is too long because I need to add some connectors to this and it may add too much, but let's have a look. So here's all my findings. I've got a clasp, some 6mm jump rings, some 4mm jump rings, and I've got some connectors. And these are a 3-strand connector. So they basically step 3 strands down into one so you can put your clasp on. So the first thing we're going to do is crimp each end and attach a jump ring and our connector. So just taking 1 strand off my bead stopper here because I want to keep everything kind of railed in with my bead stopper and pushing everything up so it's nice and tight, and I'm going to put on my crimp tube. And I'm just going to crimp this in exactly the same way, if I can get my crimp tubes open. There we go. So feeding on my crimp tube, let's cut the end off that. It's a little natty and sometimes that makes it hard to thread through things. So cut the end off and it'll go through nicely. Just doesn't want to go through there. There we go. Now I do need to make sure that my jump rings are really well closed for this so that the tiger tail doesn't fall out. But I am going to open them again, so not such a big deal. Feeding on my 6mm jump ring and my crimp tube, and then I want to make sure that I capture my 6mm jump ring inside the loop, so I'm going back down through my crimp tube. And I'm going to go back through 1 bead. And as you can see, everything's really loose, so I'm going to pull my crimp tube down, hold the jump ring and pull everything up. And I can do that several times until I get it the right length. And I want to make sure that all of my beads are all pushed up before I squeeze it. And I'm just continuing to do that till it's in the right place. I'm going to take my crimping pliers and I'm going to give it a squeeze. When I trim this end, it works best for me if I actually fold that over and kind of push the bead back on itself. If you trim it nice and close, you'll never see it. Now I'm going to repeat that with all 5 of my other strands. Now I've strung my entire necklace and I've crimped it, and you can see it has its jump rings on each end. So next I need to step it down to one strand so that I can thread on my clasp and a jump ring. So I'm going to take my 2 pairs of chain nose pliers and open my jump rings really carefully and feed on my connector. If you haven't used jump rings before, I'll leave you a link in the description box to a video all about how to use them. So I'm just opening that up and just double checking this is my top strand, so that one wants to go on that way, and closing that. And I want to make sure it's really well closed. I could have used a wire guardian here to protect the wire and to stop it coming out of the jump ring, but I think it'll be okay. It's a choice you can make for yourself. And I'm going to repeat that with all 6. Because this is a single-sided necklace and I'm using a single-sided connector, I do need to make sure that I get it on the right way. So I'm just lying the necklace down and putting it here and just doing it one at a time, just methodically, so that I don't mix it up. And that's what that looks like. Now this will extend the length of my necklace quite a lot, but I think that's okay in this case because I don't want the necklace sitting right close to my neck. I don't really like really tight chokers. I actually want it to sit more down kind of on my, whatever these bones are called, I can't remember. If you know, let me know. Leave me a comment in the comment section and let me know what these bones are called. All right, so I'm going to attach my clasp with a 4mm jump ring. And I want to make sure that I get it on my right hand side. Because I'm right-handed, it's easier for me to do up a clasp using my right hand than my left hand. So to do that, I'm going to flip this piece over and make sure that it is going to sit the right way. So that works. This is my right hand side, so I know that I need to put my clasp on this side. So I'm just opening my jump ring. And I'm going to feed on my clasp first. Then I'm going to feed on my connector. And I'm going to close up my jump ring. You could use a 6mm for this if you wanted. I just prefer a 4. I've said that many times. Just double checking that it's done up correctly. Can't see it, so that's always a good sign. So that's what that looks like. And for the other end, I'm going to put on a 6mm jump ring, that's it. So my clasp will do up into a 6mm. I just find that a little bit easier than a 4. So this one happens to be open, I'll just thread it on and make sure it's really well closed. And there is my clasp done up. Isn't it pretty? It would actually make a really pretty bracelet even. I think it's gorgeous. Here are my necklaces. I absolutely love them. Now I did end up shortening the choker just because it was a little bit too long. And when I remade it, I did add some wire guardians. You're going to need some 3mm glass pearls. So what I've done here is I've counted enough to go around my wrist once and a little bit, because we're going to make our memory wire bracelet a little bit longer than one circumference of our wrist. And the reason we're doing that is because when we plait it, it will expand a little bit. So I've got 60 pearls in here of my 3mm, and in this one I have 21 8mm pearls, and I have 44 of my little 4mm rondelles here, beaded rondelles, and 6 of my 3mm silver balls. You'll need 6 for the whole project. You'll need 132 of these, you will need 380 of these, and you will need 63 of these. As well as that, you're going to need some 6cm memory wire, and you will need some 16 gauge half hard wire. And this is a German style half hard wire. We're going to be using some memory wire. If you haven't used memory wire before, it's amazing. It's made from really strong stainless steel, so it holds its shape. So when you pull it out like this, it goes back into shape. Within reason, you don't want to pull it too hard because it is wire, but you can see here if I pull it out like that, it will go back into its shape. And I've already cut my memory wire, but obviously you're going to be needing to cut your memory wire. You will need a pair of memory wire cutters. Memory wire is super hard, so you don't want to damage your standard cutters by cutting it with them. So memory wire cutters are specially designed for cutting really hard wire. They're also really good for cutting stainless steel chain as well. I use it for that as well. What we need is 1.5 rounds or loops of our memory wire, and you can see here I've already cut it to about 1.5. You will eventually cut some off, but to cut your memory wire, all you do is pop it in the jaws like that, and I like to hold both ends and just snip. What I suggest you do before you start this bracelet is count out the number of beads you will need for each round. The reason I suggest that is just to stop you having to count every single bead that you put on. And you could actually do this while you're watching, TV or watching me on YouTube. I've counted out here 60 of my 3mm beads and 21 of my 8mm beads, and I've also counted out 44 of these little beaded rondelles as well. So the first thing we're going to do is take our run nose pliers and make a loop in the end of our memory wire. And what you want to do is put your memory wire inside the jaws of the pliers so that it's not sticking up, so you can't feel it when you run your finger or your thumb over the top. And holding it nice and firmly between your finger and your thumb, twist your pliers away from you until your wrist can't go any further. Then just take your pliers out and put them back in. So I'm just going to twist again and twist again until readjusting, twisting until I get my loop closed. So that's what I have now, and it's just, you probably can't see this on camera, but it's just sticking up a bit. So I'm going to take my pliers, my chain nose pliers, and just give it a squeeze so that it now has popped into place. Now we're going to string on some beads, and it's really super simple. Got my beads all here, and I am just going to string on all of these beads, and I don't have to count them because I've already counted them. There's my beads all on, and as you can see it does overlap quite a lot. I wanted it to overlap because when I braid it, it will take up some of the memory wire. So what I need to do now is cut my memory wire at this end, and you can see I did allow myself a little bit extra to work with. But I want to make my cut at about 1 centimetre or so from the end of the beads. So I'm just holding it in both hands, making sure I hold the beads on because you don't want them to fly off, and snip. So there we go. And now I'm going to take my round nose pliers, just holding my beads on, and make a loop in this end. So making my loop so that it turns in. And I'm just going to give it another squeeze. Alright, so there is my first round, and I need to have 6 of those, so I'm going to go ahead and make those. Now I've made my 6 strands of beautiful 3mm pearls. I'm going to make my second strand. Now if you didn't want to make this as a braided cuff, you could actually just string these all onto one piece of memory wire and put a loop on one end, string them on, and then put a loop on the other. So don't think you have to braid this. You could actually make it as a standard bracelet, but I'll talk to you a little bit more about that in a minute. Next, we're going to take another piece of memory wire. We're going to make a loop, just like we did before. Give it a squeeze. I always like to do that because they tend to, well, my loops anyway, always tend to go up a little bit when I'm making loops with memory wire. Now, what we're going to do this time is a little bit different. I have already counted out 21 of my 8mm pearls. I'm going to start off with one of these 3mm silver balls. Then I'm going to put on 2 of my beaded rondelles. Then I'm going to put on one of my beads, going everywhere. Now I'm going to put on 2 more of my daisy spaces, and 1 more of my pearls. That's what I have now. And next I'm just going to repeat that. I'm going to do 2 of my daisy spaces and a pearl until I've used up all my beads. And remember, I had 21. There's what I have now, and all I'm going to do to finish this piece is put another 3mm silver ball on the end, like that, and I'm going to make a loop in this end. So I'm just cutting my memory wire about 1 centimetre from that last bead again, holding my beads on and making my loop. Before you make your loop, it's a good time to check that you have your pattern right before you go ahead and cut your wire and make your loop. There is that piece, and I need 2 more of those, so I'm going to go ahead and make those. So here we have all of the components to make up our bracelet. Now before I do that, what I wanted to talk to you about is if you want to make this bracelet without making it braided, so make it in one piece, here's what you would do. First, you would cut a piece of memory wire that went round your wrist about 10 times. And you need it that many times because you've got 9 strands and you need some to work with for making your loops. Then what you would do is make a loop in the end, just like I did, and you would feed on enough beads to go around once. So you would, this one has 60, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, you probably put about 55 beads, assuming you were using a 6 centimetre memory wire. If you're using a 5.5, which I normally do, then I would take off a few more. So basically you just want 1 loop of beads of the pearls. And then what you would do, I would miss off the 3mm ball here, and I would just start with 2 of your beaded rondelles, and you would do 1 round of this. And once again, you would make it so that it met. So you'd probably take 2 beads off that. So basically what you're looking for, if you were making this as a single bracelet, is to have 1 round of the 3mm, 1 of your 8mm with the beaded rondelles in, 2 of your 3mm, 1 more of your 8, 2 of your 3, 1 of your 8, and 1 more of your 3. So that's if you wanted to make this bracelet that looked like that. You could use just 1 row of the 3mm between if you wanted to. It's up to you, but I actually really love this combination. To put this all together, what we're going to do is we are going to make it into piles of 3, and each pile is going to have 1 of our rounds of 3s, 1 of our rounds of 8s, and 1 of our rounds of 3s. So as you can see, I've got 3 there. Now I'm going to grab some wire. Now this is a 16 gauge, so it is quite a hard wire. It's quite a thick wire. You could make this with an 18 gauge if you wanted. Now I'm using my little wire straightener here, but you could use a pair of nylon jeweled pliers, or you could run it through a cloth, or you could use your chain nose pliers. I just love this gadget. Right, I'm going to use my memory wire cutters to cut it. I don't need to, but I've got them here. And I'm going to cut off that end as well. Now I've cut a piece, it's about 10 centimetres long. I'm not going to need that much, but I wanted to have enough so that I had some to work with. The memory wire cutter didn't leave me a nice flat cut, so I'm actually going to cut it with my flush cutters. You can see there I've got a nice flat cut, and the reason I need a nice flat cut is so that I get a nice loop. So that's what I have now. Now I want to make a loop in this end, but I want to make sure that these are sitting nice and flat, so I don't want to squash them up like this. I want to make sure that they have plenty of room to sit flat. So just kind of separating them out, spreading them out nice and evenly as best you can, just so that they all sit nice and flat. And I think I will cut it about there. So even though when I move them down, they all fly down to the other end, I don't want them to be all at the other end. So using the flat side of my cutters so that I get a nice flat flush cut, just holding it on either side and cutting. Now I'm going to make a loop. Now you'll notice I've made a mistake here. not really, because I can fix it really easily, but my loops are going in different directions. So you can see there, this one is facing this way, this one's facing this way. So what I'm going to do, no problem, is go under there, take my chain nose pliers, take the loop, taking another pair of pliers and holding the other end loop. You can squish everything up in the middle. This feels a bit like wrangling cats. And so this loop needs to face that way, so I'm going to hold it like that and twist around my hand. And now both my loops are facing the same way. You see that? So next what we're going to do is the braid. Now if you don't want to braid it, you could actually just repeat this step on the other end and just wear it as a cuff. But I'm going to take it a step further and I'm going to braid it. So what I need to do now is divide my 3 strands. So basically I've got those 3, I've got these 3 in the center, and I've got these 3. So what we're going to do is take our right hand one and cross it over our left hand one. Oh, sorry, our center one. And then I'm going to take my left hand one and cross it over my center one. Now you don't want to braid it too many times because it will be too tight. So I'm going to do it one more time. So right over left, sorry, right over center, left over center. And let's see how that looks. I think it wants to do it one more time, so one more. There we go, that feels about right. So that's what I have. Now, on this end, you just want to make sure that all of your 3 strands are all in the right order. So I'll just see if I can turn it around. So I've got my 3 strands here, my 3 strands here, and my 3 strands here. And I know they look like they're not the same length, but they are. We just need to bully them into place. Now, what I should have done is make my loop in my other piece of wire before I did this, but I'm going to very gently put it down because it's not going to spring away, and make a loop in my, or cut some wire and make another loop. Very carefully picking it up and finding those 3 lots of 3 again, and I'm going to thread on this one, just push it back, just making sure that you're catching the right one, that one, and these 3, and then these 3. So what you want to do now is try and get your piece of wire the same length as the previous one. And you could have pre-cut your wire, but it would have been harder to make. I think I need to cut it about here. I can always remake my loop if I need to. So let's try that and see what happens. This time I'm going to try and get my loop going the right way, but it doesn't matter if I don't. So that's a little bit longer. So what I'm going to do is open my loop up again, cut a little bit off, and try again. And it's okay that I did that because it's really hard. You could, as I said, you could have measured it, maybe make a little mark on your wire, but I didn't do that, so that's okay. Right, I'm just going to make sure that my loops are both going in the same direction by getting my pliers in there and just twisting them until they are exactly the same. There's my bracelet. I think it's absolutely wonderful. It is quite a bulky bracelet, so if you wanted to minimize the bulk, what you could do is just make it as a standard memory wire bracelet without the twists, or you could even just make it without the plaiting and with the braiding, and it would still be a great bracelet. Just remember to take off those extra few beads that were taken up in the plaiting. I'd like to take a moment to thank the Style Makers Network for sponsoring this episode. By joining the Style Makers Network, you will get a whole lot more of me. You will get to join Zoom calls and live streams and early access to my episodes ad-free. You'll also get to join in monthly challenges. There are lots of different membership options, so I'd like to invite you to check those out. I really appreciate your support. I'll leave you that linked below. In front of me, I have already laid out my bead design board with my pearls. So all I've done here is laid out pearls. These are 6mm glass pearls in the colour Baby Pink. And I've laid them out so that they go up to 16 centimeters on either side. Now with this necklace, I want it to sit quite high on my neck. I don't want it to be a choker, but I don't want it to sit too low either. So I'm going to make it 32 centimeters long, which is about 12.5 inches. And well, we'll see. I'll string on these beads and we'll see what happens if it's going to be long enough. I need to remember also when I'm making my necklace or deciding how long I want it, that my clasp will add a couple of centimeters. So you need to allow for that as well. So I've got my beautiful pearls here. As well as that, I'm going to use this gorgeous heart as my center focal piece. And I've got 2 other heart beads here as well. I figured let's go hearts, right? Go hard or go home. As well as that, I have this gorgeous filigree heart charm. And just diverting from the heart theme for a moment, I've got a little butterfly charm. And I've got 2 little star beads. These are transparent glass star beads, and you will remember these ones from the bookmark that I made just before Christmas. As well as that, I have, keeping in tune with the hearts, a heart clasp, and I've also got some little 4mm jump rings here. I've got some 5cm head pins and some 5cm eye pins. Apart from that, the only other thing I'm using is some tiger tail. This is a 0.38mm, but you could use 0.45 if you wanted to, and it's in the colour silver grey. I will need some tools. I'm going to be using my flush cutters. I'm going to be using 2 pairs of chain nose pliers, and I'm going to be using my round nose pliers. The first thing I'm going to do, I'm just going to move this out of the way for a minute. I'm going to make my little dangles. I'm going to start off with my heart, my center. So I've got my heart there, and I'm going to take a head pin, and all I'm going to do is thread it on from the bottom. Oh dear, we've got a problem. So you can see there that my head pin is actually going up through my heart. So that doesn't work. So I'm just going to grab a bead, and we'll put a bead on the bottom. I'll be right back. Okay, so I've got a 3mm ball here. It's a metal ball, and I will add that to the list of requirements. Okay, so I'm going to feed on my little ball, and it's just going to stop the head pin going up inside that heart. It actually looks quite cute too, so all the better. Right, next I am going to make a loop in the top here. Now with these heart beads, I found that you need to bend your wire for your loop about where the top of the heart is, otherwise you can't get down into the V there. So I'm just popping my pliers there, and I'm going to bend my wire over like that. Now if you haven't made a loop before, I've got a video on how to do that, so I will leave you a link in the description box below for that. And I am just going to cut that off at about 1 centimetre there. Whoops, it went flying away. And I'm going to take my round nose pliers, and I'm going to make a loop. All right. So just turning and adjusting and turning again. Now I've made a really wonky loop because the bead was moving up and down, but that's okay. You know what? Now that I look at it, I'm going to change it. I'm going to cut that off, and I'm going to add a couple of the little balls on the top too. I don't want to add too many, because what I need is a little bit of space so that the wire can go up between the beads. But let's have a play. So I'm going to take my ball again and put it on. Now my heart, and I'm going to pop on 2 more little balls. What do you think? Do you need 1 or 2? I think I'm just going to go with 1. Now I'm going to bend my wire over at the top. And I'm going to cut it to 1 centimetre. So that is what I have now. Now I'm going to make my loop. What I'm trying to do is tuck it in on top of the bead, and the bead keeps getting in the way. So I'm just going to hold the bead down with my thumb, put my other finger on the bottom. And what I'm doing here is I'm kind of got my round nose pliers in there, and I'm kind of pulling back and pushing round at the same time. There we go. All right, so there is my loop, my heart with its loop. And that will spin around in there. There we go. Right, so there is my first component. Now I'm going to take my little pink heart here, and I'm going to do the same thing. This time I don't have to add a bead because I know it's not going to go through, the headpin's not going to go through. And I'm just going to put a bend at the top there and make a loop exactly the same way. So cutting it off at 1 centimetre. And making my loop. And there we go, that's component number 2. Now the other heart, it already has a bail on it, so I'm not going to add anything to this one. With my little stars, I'm going to use a head pin just exactly the same way. Just cutting off that. So I'll do that with both stars. Alright, now I have made all of my little charm components. What I'm going to do is make these 2 here. And I'm actually going to use an eye pin to do this. So I've got 2 eye pins here. So I'm going to open up my loop here on the bottom of my eye pin. And I'm going to put on my little charm and close my loop. So that's what I have. And now I'm going to make a loop in the top. So I'm going to leave a little bit of space, just taking my pliers, and what I'm going to do is just put them right at the top of that loop there. And I'm going to bend, just like before. And now I'm going to go ahead and make my loop. What I want to do is make my loops going in opposite directions. So one is going one way and one is going the other. So I just want to make sure it is basically at right angles from each other. Here we go. And I'm going to repeat that with the other one. So I've run into a little problem here. This little charm here has a tiny wee hole and my eye pin won't go through the hole. It's just too big. So instead of using an eye pin, I'm going to use a little piece of 21 gauge wire. This is a half hard wire. I will leave you the link for this one as well, and you only need, 5 centimeters, 2 inches. So I'm going to put a bend in the wire about 1 centimeter from the top and just make a right angle and make a loop. Just like I did before. So there's my loop. Now I'm going to put on my charm. Actually, before I do that, I'm going to make a loop in the other end. So I'm just going to give it a little bit of space, not much, just maybe a few millimeters, and I'm going to make a loop in this end. Now you want to make sure that your loops are going in different directions, just like before. Now I'm going to take my chain nose pliers and I'm going to open that loop and feed on my charm. Oh, it's still tight, but it will work. Okay. All right. So there we go. Now to lay this out, just come back over here. What we're going to do is we're going to put our red heart in the middle. I'm going to put a blue one on about there and a pink one on about there. In between, I'm going to put some charms. All right, and I'm going to put my little stars up the top here. What do you think? Okay, so now I'm just going to string them on, and I've got my tiger tail here. I'm going to be using, I'm actually going to use a bead stopper, and I didn't say that, I'm sorry. All right, so if you haven't used one of these before, basically it's a spring and you just pop your tiger tail or whatever you're using inside, and it means that it won't move, so it stops your beads falling off. So now I've got to make a decision about where I will, whether or not I will use jump rings to attach these components. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to start, I normally would start here and work my way around, but I'm actually going to start from the center because I want to figure out whether or not this is going to work. And I think for this first one, for the heart, I am going to use a jump ring. So I'm just going to take my pliers. Now these are 4mm jump rings, so they're quite small. And opening my jump ring and feeding on my little heart, or my large heart, and closing my jump ring. I'm just double checking that it's closed. There we go. So there you go, there it is with its little jump ring on. Now the reason I put a jump ring on, and I know that this turns, but it kind of makes that, it means that it will sit better. So I'm going to start off, I'm actually going to start, I think, 2 beads off the center. So I'm going to put on 2 of my pearls. And then I'm going to put on my heart here. And now 2 more of the pearls, so that I can see what it's going to look like. And it's good to test how things will hang as well. Oops, I lost my bead. So there we go. Hopefully you can see that that's going to hang really nicely. And the addition of that little jump ring has done that. All right, so I'm going to put on, I think, another 2 beads. Just move my pliers, they're in the way. So popping on another 2 of my beads, and now I'm going to put on my charm. And once again I have to decide, will I put it on just like this, or will I add a jump ring? And at the moment, if I put it on, let's see what it looks like. So you can see there that it's hanging sideways. So I am going to use my little jump ring to add that one. So once again, just opening it in the same way and popping it on. You need to make sure that everything's really well closed on this necklace, particularly because you're putting jump rings onto a piece of tiger tail, so you want to make sure that they're not going to fall off or that the tiger tail's not going to slip through. Just a little bit more. Sometimes it helps to look at your jump ring from different angles and you will get a better idea of what's going on with it. All right, there we go. Now you can see it's hanging better. It's hanging towards the front how I want it to. And it will move around when you wear it, but when your skin's against it, it will probably be fine. Do you think that's too close? I'm not sure. What do you think? I think it might need to go one more bead. I'm going to put one more. Trial and error, that's what designing jewellery is all about. Now I've put my charm on, you'll see I've put it on backwards. So you need to make sure that you put it on the right way so that it's going to face the right way. There we go. All right, so what do you think so far? Okay, I'm going to put on, so I had 5 between that one and the heart and the charm, so I'm going to do 5 more and then we will see where we're at then. Now this one, because it has a bail, I'm going to just try it without the jump ring and see what it looks like. So that's what it's sitting like now, and I actually think even though it's hanging on a little bit of an angle, if I added a jump ring it would make it hang sideways. So I'm actually going to leave it like that and I think that will be fine. Okay, so we're going to add some more beads and I'm going to add 4 this time instead of the 5 and see what that looks like. And I'm going to put a jump ring on this one. Now my loop on this one isn't quite closed. So I wanted to show you what you do if you have a loop that's not closed. So I'm taking my pliers, my chain nose pliers, and I'm holding it on the side that it opens. And what I'm going to do is lift up slightly, and as I come down I'm going to push it towards the other side of the loop. So it's kind of an up and over movement. And you might have to do it several times until it is closed properly and you can feel that it's no longer, you can kind of feel when they touch. And as I said, sometimes it helps to look at it from different angles. All right, so there is my loop and it's closed. So it's kind of an up and over movement. Now I do think I will need a jump ring for this one. So just taking my jump ring and opening it just like before and adding it on. And closing it up. When you close your jump rings, you will kind of feel them, the metal kind of grate together if they're closed properly. All right, and now I'm going to just thread on the rest of these beads. Now before I go any further, what I need to do is make sure that it's going to fit me. So I'm going to pop it around and I can see it's way too short. I probably need another 5 beads on there because that's the length that I want it. It's pretty though, isn't it? So I'm going to pop on some more beads and just test it again once I've done that. So I've popped 5 on one side. I'm going to take off my bead stopper, switch it over and put it on the other side and just put 5 more on this side as well. So that actually fits me really well now, so I'm really happy with that. It will be slightly longer when I add my clasp, but pretty close. So what I'm going to do next is add my clasp, and I'm going to just feed on one of my little crimp beads here. Notice I'm going fishing for it with the end of my tiger tail rather than trying to poke it through. It just makes it a little bit easier. So there it is on there, and then I'm going to feed on my loop of my clasp like that. Now I'm going to go back down through my crimp bead and I'm going to go through 2 of my beads, 2 or 3. Now I know a lot of people don't do this. I just have a better feeling of security when I do it. Okay, so push your beads up so that it's, and your crimp beads, so that it's nice and close to your clasp. Now you want to make sure that it can still move around, but you want it to be reasonably close. And I'm going to take my magical crimping tool. Now if you haven't used one of these before, they are amazing. What they do is they make your crimp bead look like another bead, or like a little metal bead. So what you do is you pop it in the divot there, and then you squeeze, and then you turn it on its side, and you squeeze again. And that should hold it nice and firm. If you give it a tug, it shouldn't move. And it's created a really nice round crimp. Now I'm going to cut off my tiger tail, and I'm going to feed through all my beads up to this end, just making sure that that end goes inside a bead. And now I'm going to take off my bead stopper, and I'm going to repeat that on the other end. Now this time, what I need to do is make sure that there's no gaps. So I'm going to pop my tiger tail back through my crimp bead here, and through a couple of my beads. And I need to pull everything up. Now what will happen is that you'll get to a certain point and it'll become really, really challenging. Although I made that look really easy, didn't I? There we go. But you want to make sure that you don't have a gap like that. So just keep pulling. Now if you pull too hard, you might get to a point where it won't pull any further. So what you can do is take your chain nose pliers and just hold the side of this loop of tiger tail here. Just one of the strands, if I can get hold of it, and give it a pull. And that tends to pull everything back down. And you see how much it moved there, and then I can pull it some more. Now you don't want your beads to be so tight that nothing moves, because you do need a little bit of movement in your necklace. Clearly I had way too much. Now I've got mine too tight because my clasp won't move. There we go. Now I'm going to take my magical crimping pliers and crimp this end as well. Okay, now what I'm going to do is just cut off that end, nice and close. Sometimes it helps to actually bend it so that you can get in there nice and close with your flush cutters. And that end will just disappear. There it is, but I'm actually not happy with how this heart here is hanging. Remember, we didn't use a jump ring, so I'm actually going to take it off, and I can do that because it's attached with a bail, and I'm going to put on a jump ring. So what I'm going to do is just give it a little squeeze there and try and pull it off. So now I need to decide, should I leave the bail or should I take it off? And I think I'm going to take it off. I'm going to take it off, and I'm going to put on a loop like I did with the others. So I'm just going to pull that off. There we go. And I'm going to take a head pin, an eye pin, and I'm going to make a little loop in the top. So just nice and close. So there we go. Just making a bend, cutting off so I have about 1 centimetre, and making my loop. Okay, so there is what I have done. And you can see I've got my loops going in opposite directions. Now I'm going to open that loop. I'll open one of the loops, and I'm going to attach my heart to it. I think that the reason that this didn't work was because the other hearts will move around because they're on head pins, but this one, it's the loop is glued in, so it just wasn't going to work, it wouldn't move. Okay, now I'm going to put on my jump ring. So opening my jump ring, and I have to remember where this goes. So popping on my loop there. Now it goes 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 from the charm. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So it goes in there. Just hooking that on. This is not the ideal way to do it. There we go. It's on, and now I just need to close up that jump ring. So here's my necklace. I really love it actually. I love the colours and I think it's absolutely beautiful. But I'm not really a pearls kind of girl, certainly not a classic pearls kind of girl. So I wanted to give it a little bit of an edge. So what I did was I used some beautiful 7mm glass pearls in the colour cream, which is very traditional. And I added this gorgeous heart. This is a glass heart and it measures 20mm by 12. And it's in this beautiful turquoise colour, aqua turquoise. Aqua. So I decided to use that as a focal, and I decided to make a choker because I felt that went really well with my dress. I actually made mine in red, and I will show you a picture here of what I looked like in my dress. But I wanted to make this one in blue because I have used that red bead before, that beautiful red heart, and also the clasp that I chose was blue. It has this gorgeous sapphire in it. Now you will have seen this clasp before in my cha-cha bracelet. So if you want to check out that one, go ahead and do that afterwards because I don't want you to run away just yet. Alright, so the first thing I'm going to do is make my little dangle. And I've got here a head pin, and I'm going to put on a 3mm metal ball. I'm going to put on my heart and another 3mm ball. Now the reason I decided to do this, well there were two reasons really. Firstly, the head on the head pin was too small and it kept going through the glass bead. So I needed to add something to stop the head pin disappearing into the heart. So the 3mm ball was the minimal amount that I could use. And also it kind of looks like the head on the head pin once you put it on. And I decided to add one to the top because it's actually quite hard to do a loop when you have this V shape here. And I also really like the way it looks. So the next thing I'm going to do is make a loop in the top of my head pin. I'm going to take my pliers and I'm going to make a bend right at the top where that wire is coming out of the bead. And the bead wants to run away. There we go. Next I'm going to cut my wire at about 1 centimetre from the bend. So I want to hold both ends so that it doesn't fly away. And the bead is going to come off, that's okay. I'm trying to hold it on there. It just wants to wiggle around, this one. And then I'm going to take my round nose pliers and make a loop. So making sure the wire isn't sticking up and twisting away from me, readjusting and twisting again. There's my focal with its loop on the top. So the head pin going through from the bottom with the 3mm balls and the loop on the top. So I'm going to put that aside for a minute. Now I didn't really talk about what I have in front of me. I've got some tiger tail. This is a 0.38mm tiger tail. I've got my beautiful clasp. I've got some fine French wire, and I like to use the French wire instead of a wire guardian. I've got my 7mm pearls, of course. I've got some 4mm jump rings, and I have some magical crimp beads. Now I learned a valuable lesson when I made this necklace, and I'm going to share that with you later. It's a really good one. The first thing I need to do is decide how long I'm going to make my choker. So I actually need to measure my neck. So I've got my trusty tape measure here, and I am going to put it around my neck and figure out where the end is and measure my neck, where I want it to sit. So that feels about right. And that is about 34 centimetres. Now I need to remember that my clasp will take up quite a lot because it's quite a large clasp. So it takes up about 3 centimetres. By the time I add some jump rings and things and my loop of my tiger tail, it'll be about 30 centimeters that I need. Now I'm going to use my tiger tail to thread on my beads. I pre-cut my tiger tail at about 40 centimeters, and I'm going to grab a bead stopper and pop on the end. Bead stoppers are one of my favorite inventions. Now I'm going to lay out my beads. Now I need to have my necklace measure 30 centimeters. And I know from my experience of making this necklace before that I need to add 22 beads to make 15 centimeters. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to string 22 beads. So just popping them on. This is such an easy project, and it was a good thing too because I really needed it to go fast, except when the disaster struck. All right, so now I have my 22 beads strung, and if I measure that, it is slightly longer than the 15 centimeters. It's actually 15.5 centimeters, but that's okay because I can adjust it later. And also you want some room to move, because if you've ever worn a choker that's too tight, it's not very comfortable. Next, I'm going to put on my heart. That's what it looks like. And now I'm going to string another 22 beads. There's my 44 beads all strung on, and it measures about 30 3/4 centimeters. And that's fine because I need a little bit of room to move. Now the thing I like about this necklace is that I used the 7mm pearls, which is a little bit unexpected. It adds that little bit more of a edgy vibe because they are slightly bigger. Next, we need to string the rest of the pearls, and this time we're just going with the 44 pearls. So I will take my other piece of tiger tail and my bead stopper and thread on the rest of my pearls. Now I've strung both of my strands, all I need to do is crimp it and put it together, attaching my clasp of course. So what I'm going to do is something a little bit unusual. I'm going to use some French wire to cover my tiger tail instead of a wire guardian. Personally, I feel that this looks really good, and you will have seen that in my multi-strand cha-cha bracelet. So this is French wire, and I've pulled a little bit out here so that you can see what it looks like. It's like a little spring. It's very fine. It's not like memory wire where you let it go and it goes back, so you do need to be very careful with it. And what I'm going to do is cut 4 pieces at 1 centimeter long, or thereabouts. It doesn't have to be perfect. So I'm just going to take my cutters and lay it down. It wants to stick to me. And I'm going to give it a wee cut there. And I've got a little burr on the end, so you see that? So I'm going to trim that little bit off too. It's harder to thread your tiger tail through it if it's got a little burr. What you could do is use a thicker one. I'm using a fine one because I had a packet that was open, but if you wanted to use a heavier one, you could as well. The easiest way to cut this is to lay it down on your mat. It's very springy, as you can see. It's a little bit like wrestling a snake, I think. And you want to lay it down beside it, and it doesn't have to be exact, it just has to be close. And just cut it like that. And then repeat 2 more times. There's my 4 little pieces of French wire. Now I'm going to put my clasp on with a jump ring, a 4mm jump ring. You could use a 6 if you wanted to. I'm just using a 4 because I think it looks good. But if it's too fiddly, that's fine, you can use a 6. Just remember though, if you use a 6, it does add a few millimeters to the length of the necklace because you're going from a 4 to a 6, so you add 2 millimeters per jump ring. So I'm going to open my jump ring and I'm going to put my clasp on, and then I'm going to close my jump ring. So there we go, my jump ring is now open. I'm going to take my beautiful clasp and I'm going to flip it over because it's easier to do this from the inside. I'm going to hold my jump ring right on the point there like that, and I'm going to feed that through the hole. This is a magnetic clasp, so you can see it's sticking to my pliers. And then I'm going to close up my jump ring really well, making sure that it's really well closed. And I'm going to repeat that with 3 more jump rings for the clasp. There's my clasp, and it's got a jump ring coming through each hole on each end. What I found when I made this necklace the first time was that it was too short. Now if I had gone ahead and threaded my tiger tail through the loops in the clasp, the holes, instead of using a jump ring, what would have happened? I would have had to have started all over again. So my big tip here is always, always attach your tiger tail to a jump ring and then put it through your clasp. That's my big learning from this necklace. Now, I actually found when I made this necklace that my necklace was slightly too tight. It felt just a little bit uncomfortable. So what I did, because I'd added my clasp with a jump ring, is I could undo my jump ring and add an extra 4mm jump ring. And that just gave me enough to make me feel comfortable. So I am going to do that now. I'm going to put another jump ring onto that jump ring I've just added. So let's do that. So opening my jump ring, and this time I am going to thread it through that 4mm jump ring there. Now I wouldn't have had to have done this had I used a 6mm, so there you go. And I'm closing up that jump ring. There's my clasp with its 2 jump rings on each side. Now I can go ahead and put my tiger tail on, and I know that I've got that peace of mind that it's going to be just that tiny bit longer than it was last time. Now we're going to thread on a crimp tube and then a piece of our French wire. So just taking one of my crimp tubes, and these are magical crimp tubes because I'm going to be using my magical crimping plier. Then taking a tiny piece of your French wire and threading it on. So that's what I have now. You can see my crimp bead and my French wire. Then I'm going to put on the jump ring from my clasp. I'm just undoing my clasp and working with one piece at a time. And so I'm going to thread my jump ring onto my tiger tail. Now the beauty of using a French wire is that you don't need to worry about your tiger tail falling out of your jump ring if your jump rings are well closed, because it's basically an insurance policy. Now I'm going to come back down through my crimp tube and I'm going to go through a bead or two. Can't get a hold of it. There we go. So what I'm aiming for here, you can see my French wire is all on one side. So what I'm aiming for is to pull it all down so that my French wire comes down and forms a loop like that. Now I'm going to take my magical crimping tool and I am going to give my crimp tube a squeeze. I'm going to turn it round and give it another squeeze. So there it is with its crimp tube all crimped. Then I'm going to trim off my short piece of tiger tail. Now I'm going to run all of the beads up to the other end, making sure that I tucked in that tail. So we're going to repeat that for this end. So we're going to start off with a crimp tube. And then a piece of French wire. And now I'm going to put on the jump ring from the other end of the clasp. So just feeding my tiger tail through that jump ring and back down through my crimp tube. Sometimes these magical crimp tubes can be quite tight to get through, but you get there eventually. And down through a couple of beads as well. Now if you get to this point and you can't pull it any further, what you need to do is pull your crimp tube down and just keep moving it down until you get close to the beads and then pull it up again. And you might need to do that several times. Now you also want to make sure that you don't do it too tight. You do still need your necklace to be able to move, and that is one of the biggest issues people have with crimping their necklaces, is that they make them too tight so there's no movement in the beads. You actually need to leave it just a little bit of space. Now I'm going to take my magical crimping tool and crimp my crimp tube again. And now I'm just going to cut off the end. All right, now we need to repeat that for the other strand. So I'm taking my bead stopper off and putting on my crimp tube and my piece of French wire. And trim off the end. So let's try it on and see if it fits. Oh no! What happened was this tiny little pin here came out of my clasp, out of this piece of my clasp, and now it won't stay together. I replaced the clasp really quickly because I'd used those jump rings. So all I needed to do was undo my jump ring, take off the fending clasp that was broken, and put a new one on. So that was a really, really quick and easy fix. Now, if I had put my tiger tail through the loop of the clasp or the hole of the clasp, I would have been in trouble. I would have had to start all over again. So now I can go to my cocktail party. I actually really like this necklace. I like it even more with the blue than I did with the original red heart that I made it for the party. What do you think? Let me know in the comments section below. I'd like to ask you to click that subscribe button as well as the notification bell and give me a thumbs up. If you are subscribed and not getting notified when I publish a new episode, then please sign up for my newsletter. I'll leave that linked below for you. I found this heart pendant in a thrift store and I thought I could do something exciting with it. It needs a clean, but all of the rhinestones appear to be there. Even the bail is in good condition. It didn't have a chain or a cord attached. Today I'm going to use it to make a statement pearl necklace. The first thing I'm going to do is give the heart a good clean, and I have my polishing cloth here. This is a silver polishing cloth, and I'm just going to give it a good clean just to remove all that tarnish. These polishing cloths are really good. There are other ways to clean a piece of silver, but these are quite good. They work quite well. So there is my pendant. It does have a little bit of wear on it, but generally it looks okay, and I think it's absolutely acceptable to use. As well as my pendant, I am going to need some pearls because we're making a pearl necklace, and I have here some 12mm glass pearls. I don't know how many I'm going to need yet because I don't know how long the necklace is going to be. As well as my pearls, I'm going to be using a 17mm lobster clasp and an 8mm soldered jump ring. Now I'm using a 17mm lobster clasp just because the necklace is going to be quite a sturdy necklace, and I think a 12mm might look a little lost on there. And of course, if you watched my cocktail pearl choker, you will know that I always attach my clasp with a jump ring, simply because if you ever need to replace the clasp, it's much easier to remove it using a jump ring. You won't have to restring. So I've got my jump ring and my other jump ring. That's an 8mm, this is a 6, and I've got 2 crimp tubes. I am going to be using my magical crimping plier. I'm also going to be using 2 pairs of chain nose pliers and my flush cutters. Oh, we also need some tiger tail, something to string it on. I'm going to be using a 0.38mm tiger tail in the colour silver grey. So the first thing I'm going to do is cut quite a long piece of my tiger tail, probably about 50 centimetres, just simply because I like to leave myself lots of room just in case. So just taking my cutters and I'm going to cut that off. As well as the tools, I'm going to be using a bead stopper just to hold my beads on so that they don't fall off. This is just like a giant spring. You use the handles to open it and pop it on there and it holds nice and firmly. I'm going to start off by putting on my heart. Before you do that, you want to make sure that your bail is nice and firm or nice and tight. You don't want any gaps here so that your tiger tail can come out. But mine looks like it's nice and closed, so I can pop on my bail. Just threading it onto my tiger tail just like that. Now I'm going to thread some pearls on, and I haven't decided how long this is going to be. So I'm going to start with maybe 10 on each side. Now if this necklace is too big and bold for you, you could use a smaller heart pendant and smaller pearls. And obviously I'm not going to be able to share a link for this exact heart because I have no idea where it came from, probably from a pre-made necklace, but I will try and find something similar and link that down below. You've got 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12. Oh, 12 will do. All right, I'm going to take the bead stopper off one end and pop it back on the other end. And then I'm going to thread 12 beads onto this side. Before I start, I've got a little bend in my tiger tail there, and that's going to cause me issues. So I will just chop it off. So we'll pop 12 beads on this side as well. All right, now I have strung my 12 pearls on either side, and I'm going to have a look and see how long it is, whether it's too long, too short, etc. I think it's probably too short, but let's have a look. Oh yes, it's way too short. So let me feel. I probably need another 3 beads on either side. So I'm going to pop 3 on. Move my bead stopper to the other side and pop 3 on this side as well. Now the reason I'm doing this from the center out is simply because I just didn't know how long I wanted it. So if I'd known how long I wanted my necklace, I could have strung from one side to the other. Okay, so now I've got my 15 beads on either side. Let's have a look. I'm just going to hold it right close to the beads there and pop it around my neck. So I have a little bit of a dilemma. So it's too short, and if I add 2 more beads it's going to be too long, and of course I don't want to add 1 bead on only one side because then it won't hang in the center. But if I think about the fact that my clasp is 17 millimeters and my jump ring is 8 millimeters, and I've also got another 6 millimeter jump ring in there, that adds probably about 2 centimeters. So I think it's going to be okay. So I think we'll go with it and see what it looks like at the end. Now I do need to check that I have the required 15 on either side, and I can do that simply by holding it like this. So I put my heart pendant on one end and I just double check that everything is the same on this side, which it is, so that's good. Now we're going to put our clasp on this side. And first, before we do that though, I want to add my jump ring to my clasp because we don't thread tiger tail through our clasp, because if disaster happens, we have to completely restring. So taking my clasp and my 6 millimeter jump ring, I'm going to take my 2 pairs of chain nose pliers and open my jump ring. So I'm going to hold it on the side, and I've got my split at the top there, so holding it right along the side of the jump ring, and I'm going to hold it on this side as well. Just twist one hand down so that my jump ring is now open. Then I'm going to pop on my clasp, and I'm going to reverse that process to close it. And I want to double check that it's all nicely closed so that my tiger tail isn't going to come out. Now it just could be a fraction closer, so I'm going to lift it up again and pushing my right hand plier towards my left one, just close it again. And there's my clasp with its jump ring attached. Next we're going to put that onto our necklace. So we're going to take a crimp tube, and these are a 2 millimeter crimp tube, and I'm going to feed that on. And I like to go fishing with my crimp tube rather than trying to poke it on the end, it's just easier. And then I'm going to put on my jump ring. Then I come back down, making sure that my jump ring is between my fingers on this side and my fingers on this side, which is holding the crimp tube. And I'm going to come back down through the crimp tube. And what that does is it traps that jump ring inside the loop of the tiger tail. Now I'm going to take my magical crimping plier and give it a squeeze. Now if you don't have a magical crimping plier, you could use any other form of crimping. If you have a magical crimper and you have trouble with it, I have a video on troubleshooting as well, because so many people say to me, I can't make it work. And it is actually quite easy once you know the tricks. There's my clasp attached, and as you can see, that crimp tube just looks like a little round bead, and that's what we want. And we want to test, make sure that it's nice and secure as well. Now I'm going to squeeze the 2 pieces of tiger tail together and run 1 bead up over that tail. And then I'm going to move my main piece out of the way, and I'm going to trim that tiger tail at about 4 millimeters. And the reason I left that tail is so that this next bead will go up over it, and the tail will be hidden in the center of that bead. That's the way I like to do it. Some people don't do that. Some people chop their tiger tail off at the crimp, and you can do that as well, but I like to hide it. It just makes it neater, I think. Now we're going to put on the next one. So we take our crimp tube and pop that on. And then we take our jump ring. As I said, this is a soldered jump ring. You don't need to use a soldered jump ring for this if you didn't want to, or if you didn't have one. I just used it because it was a thicker gauge and it seemed to work well with what I was doing. So just feeding your tiger tail back down through the crimp tube again, trapping that jump ring in the loop, and then I am going to go down through the first bead. Now I want to pull everything up, and sometimes you will find that it gets stuck. It's not going to today because I wanted to demo it, but if it does get stuck, what you do is just pull your crimp tube back up towards the jump ring and it will unstuck itself, or sometimes it's actually a matter of pulling it the other way. I need to make sure I don't have any gaps, so if I move everything up, I've got a little bit of a gap, so I need to move everything down a little bit more. So pulling, now it's stuck. Now I don't want it to be. Sometimes it does get stuck and you can't pull it, so if that happens, you can actually pull the tiger tail at the loop there and that will fix it. Now you don't want it to be too tight, you still want your necklace to be able to move. There's nothing worse than having a really tight necklace that's kind of stiff. So now I've got everything in place, I'm going to take my magical crimping plier and give it a squeeze. And a turn, and a squeeze and a turn until it looks like a nice round little bead. And more importantly, it's all nice and secure, which it's not, so I'm going to give it a few more squeezes. Now that I've done that, I want to cut off my tail, and you can see I've got a little bit of a gap between my beads there, and there's my tail coming out. Now I can't make it go inside this bead. If I did, it would just poke out. So I am going to come in here really close to this bead and I'm going to cut off my tail, make sure it's the tail, because what will happen is when this bead moves down, as it does with gravity, it will be hidden inside this one. So there it is on. Is it too short, do you think, or could it have been a little bit longer? I actually really like it. I can understand if you would like to add a couple more beads to it and have it sitting a little bit lower. It's a personal preference thing, and this is the thing with making our own jewelry. We can make it to our personal preference. What did I tell you? Aren't pearls just awesome? If you've enjoyed this episode, then you need to check out this video next, and I'll see you in the next one.